Money FM 89.3, the best of Saturday mornings. International News Review.
International News Review with Steve Okun joining us today, as he always does. Steve, good morning. And let's start first with the Gaza ceasefire, signed, sealed, delivered. Is it going to hold? I guess that's the next question. How much difference is it going to make?
Well, it's certainly going to make a short-term difference because at least we have a pause to this, brutal conflict. And it now
6 weeks, apparently.
6 weeks, and we now will have hostages coming home. We will have the just desperately needed humanitarian aid, as much as I've read 600 trucks of food and tents and medical supplies and fuels going in every day to help those people there who so desperately need it. So at least for the next 6 weeks, very good news. What happens after that, we don't know. And it's just this brutal, conflict had to come to an end. And at least we have a pause now.
What's so tragic about it? This was initially announced on Wednesday, and then Friday, Israeli warplanes kept bombarding. They managed to sneak in a few more attacks before the deadline, killing 58 women and children. So my question is, we know this is coming, the pressure is coming from Netanyahu's far-right elements of his cabinet, his government. It's a coalition government. His grip on his power is tenuous. Will the far-right members of Netanyahu's coalition government be pacified?
Well, they may or they may not. And the question is, can you get a different government in Israel if needed to keep this to keep this pause and making it more permanent? I mean, look, things have changed, since October 7th, or, if you want to use the date, October 8th. I mean, three things have changed. One of the things that has changed is that, Israel's military campaign is at a point of getting diminishing returns. I mean, they have degraded Hamas as much as they can, but you are not going to eliminate it. I think they know that now, and Hamas is just going to continue to reconstitute. So the Israelis have done what they could do. They have achieved probably their top aim, which is to be sure that they could be secure in their borders. And they're more secure in their borders today than they were on October 8th. And so there comes a point where you have to have, where for Israel, it makes much more sense to have an agreement today than it did, even in May, when this deal that was essentially agreed to was first put forth by the U.S. and President Biden.
And yet Netanyahu, from all the reports, is still getting intense pressure from the right-wing parties in the Knesset to keep it going. The original, two goals of this were to, delete Hamas and make sure that it never was a threat to Israel again, which is not done, quite honestly, at this point in time, and to secure, peace and stability for Israel. And one can argue whether or not that's been achieved.
Well, I mean, look, I don't think they knew. Now, maybe they had to say, but they knew you were never going to eliminate Hamas. That was not a realistic goal. The realistic goal was Israel needed to be safe and secure in its borders. And if you look at where Israel is today within its borders, and it may very well be why Hamas, one of the things that changed for Hamas. What did Hamas want to see happen after its attack on October 7th? It wanted to see Israel, embroiled in a full-out regional conflict. What has happened? Hezbollah has been greatly diminished. Iran is weakened from where they were before. The government of Assad has fallen. So all you have left is the Houthis in Yemen, and they are disrupting not just Israel but global shipping. I mean, they're bringing in enemies on themselves that they didn't have before. So Hamas failed. Hamas wanted Israel eliminated. It wanted to see Israel into a regional conflict, and this completely backfired on Hamas. They are way worse off today from what their goal was on October 7th. So Hamas had reasons to change its position. Israel has reasons to change its position. And we can only hope that people who are completely innocent in this, the hostages, and then all of the people who live in Gaza, the tens of thousands of people, unfortunately, who have died, the maybe hundreds of thousands who are hurt from a humanitarian perspective, that this will come to an end.
Yeah.
To Glenn's point, Hamas are weakened, but they're still around. Hezbollah is still around. Yemen's Houthis are still around. Add to the fact the ongoing conflict and the deaths in Gaza has radicalized an entire generation, if not generations, of potential terrorists to come. Are they really better off at this stage? Does Israel and the region and the world seriously feel safer?
Is Israel better off today than they were on October 7th? Of course they were. On October 7th, they had one of the worst days in the history, frankly, of their country or of almost any country.
And no one's condoning that.
But you're saying, is Israel better off today than they were October 7th? Yes, of course they are.
Is the region better off? Is international security better off?
Well, this all hinges on what happens going forward. Now, could this have been addressed in a different way, in a better way? I mean, historians are going to argue over that for centuries. The Middle East has been a geopolitical hotspot for decades. You can go back to the British, and you want to talk about how we got to where we are today. And so the question is, are we going to be better off going forward? What's going to happen? Because, now will we see the type of peace agreement with the Israelis and the Saudis that never could have potentially have existed, that frankly was part of the reason why Hamas probably attacked to begin with, because they saw the direction the world was headed, and it was not headed in their direction. Yeah. We can certainly debate whether or not Israel did the right thing in response to October 7th, but you have to say they are better today than they were on October 7th.
Here's a semi-segue. Both Trump and Biden are taking credit for this. Who should or shouldn't be taking credit for this ceasefire?
Yeah, I mean, this is an example where, unfortunately, we're going to see few of going forward. The U.S. working together. This wasn't a Republican or a Democratic thing. This was the power of the United States. When the United States is unified, when President Biden comes in to President-elect Trump and says, we need to do this together. Let's go in together. Let's have my national security team and your coming national security team work on this so that Netanyahu knows that whatever I negotiate, you're going to uphold. They both deserve credit. It's ridiculous for Trump to take credit, and I also think it's ridiculous for Biden when he was asked, did Trump deserve credit? And he says, is that a joke? If Trump hadn't been part of this, Biden couldn't have gotten it done.
Yeah, absolutely.
But Biden got this done because he's been working on it for months and months and months. They both deserve credit.
Yeah, Anthony Blinken has made 20-something trips to the Middle East and to to Qatar and to put this all together, which leads us nicely into our next discussion point, which is Biden's legacy. And what do you think? Is it tarnished? Is it going to be resuscitated? Some people say that he had an amazing presidency, got a lot done, but certainly a lot of that, if in fact it's true, has been tarnished by the last 6 or 9 months of the political campaign season. Well, how do you see his longer-term legacy?
It's so hard to say right now because he's done some things that are very good. Look, the largest climate legislation in the history of the world was passed because of Joe Biden. Then he did things that were not so good. Like he appointed as his ambassador to Singapore a person totally unqualified who never understood the job, right? And then you had the awful being deciding to run for re-election in 2022 when he never should have done that. Yeah, It's a mixed bag.
Yeah.
In defense of Biden, could you argue, if I really want to play devil's advocate, that when the Obamas and your friends the Clintons made a deal to back each other, he was sidestepped. He should have stood in 2016. Had he have stood in 2016 when the Obama-Biden ticket was riding high, all of what happened next wouldn't have happened.
It's so hard to know that now. Would Joe Biden have been a better candidate than Hillary Clinton in 2016 against Trump? she lost by 78,000 votes. Could he have picked those up? Maybe. So yeah, you could argue that would have been better, that he would have been better off. But he was coming off of the death of his son, in Beau, which really affected him. Could he have been the candidate in 2016 he was in 2020? Maybe, maybe not. I mean, we just don't know where his mind was. Yeah. We don't know how the party would have looked at him. Would they have gotten behind him in 2016 like they did in 2020? Because we didn't know as Americans what Trump would have been like. And a lot of people were giving Trump a pass in 2016. And of course, they voted for him again in 2024. So just so hard to know if when you say what happened, what it could have, should have.
It's a what if. It's a what if.
It's a what if. Steve, when we look at presidential legacies, the two broad ways to look are the internal legacy within the U.S. and then the external. When we look at his external legacy, how he dealt with Europe, how he dealt with Asia, how he dealt with Africa, the rest of the world, what does that more broadly look like? Was he engaged enough? Was he engaged in the right things? Of course, let's maybe set aside Gaza and Ukraine for the moment, although those are obviously very important. But some of these other issues around the world and even around our region in Asia, how does he fare?
The thing is that his decision to run in 2022, which led to the loss in 2024, if what happens in the next 4 years is going to determine the answer to your question. Mm-hmm. Because, yes, Joe Biden did a lot of things from an international perspective. He rebuilt up the rules-based order that Donald Trump was trying to take apart in his first term. I mean, so if, for example, Donald, Trump left Paris, the climate accords, Joe Biden went right back in. Donald Trump, pulled out of TPP. Joe Biden couldn't go that far on trade, but he had a trade and economic agenda for Asia Pacific that included working with partners and allies. Trump is going to eliminate all of those things. And so if Trump is much more effective in term 2 than he was in term 1, and if he can decimate quite a bit of Biden's legacy, then we're going to look back and say that Biden was a blip. He wasn't a transformational president. So much hinges on what happens in the next 4 years. Because if we look back on Jimmy Carter, and it's so interesting that we have this time period right now, people look back on Carter and say he did a lot of things that we're still talking about. We're still talking about the relationship with China. Carter's the one who normalized that. We're still talking about Panama. Carter is the one who made that deal happen. We're still talking, obviously, about the Middle East. Carter brought peace there for the first time ever. So Carter's legacy could be much longer than Biden's, even though they're both one term. So much depends on the next 4 years.
In his farewell address, Biden said an oligarchy is taking shape. Is he not partially responsible for that? I mean, he couldn't quite curtail the rise of populism, this sense of a swamp, this sense of a 1% elite controlling everything, and this massive bureaucracy of government that needs to be curtailed. That was on his watch. So was he not, in a way, partially responsible for this oligarchy taking shape, or this sense of an oligarchy taking shape?
I mean, well, he is partially responsible, but I think that is much more societal than what this is. Societal forces, not so much what the government can control. What the government can control is what are the rules that those tech platforms are going to play by? What are the rules that are going to apply to social media? And now the Democrats, as almost everybody does, basically punted on all of that. And so that set up what Trump can do in his second term. So again, so much of what's going to come out of the Biden one term is what happens in the next 4 years. And the other thing, the difference between Biden and Carter, and then we can move on to Trump if you want. Carter had decades to build his legacy post-presidency.
Right.
And everybody agrees what a great man Jimmy Carter was post-presidency. And Joe Biden will not have any ability to do that. Joe Biden is
giving in his age.
Giving his age. We already see that. And so it's why, I watched I don't know if you watched Biden's farewell address from the Oval Office, and I could not get Dana Carvey out of my head.
Oh, the comedian.
The comedian who impersonates him now on Saturday Night Live.
Right.
It's just so spot on.
Yeah,
and then I was watching my friend Evan Osnos on CNN, and it was like, oh, well, Biden couldn't communicate and Biden didn't get the message out. And Evan's like, no, you just look at the image of him on TV without any sound. He's just really old, and that is not what comes out, and that is why he should have never run, because he is just old. He can't communicate. It's driving me crazy. He's now saying, oh, he could have beaten Trump.
He could have won. Yeah.
No, he couldn't have.
Yeah.
And now he's saying, oh, if I had I should have put my names on the checks that came out with COVID relief, like Trump had put his names on the checks, and everybody
as if that would have made a difference.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Oh, it's just
he's dreaming on that.
But he's only 4 years older than Trump. But Trump just conveys a greater sense of youth and dynamism and energy.
Without question, that Trump comes across as
more
energetic,
stronger,
stronger. Fight after getting nicked in the ear and coming close to death and having that presence of mind to do all of those things. I mean, and that the Democrats saying, well, when it was Biden v. Trump, and everyone's like, oh, it's so unfair. Everybody's focusing on Biden's age. You should focus on Trump's age. The Americans see a different person on TV. We all see a different person on TV. With
all right,
Trump.
we got to move to the next thing. The inauguration of Donald Trump is coming up on Monday in the U.S., Tuesday morning Singapore time. It will be a kind of inauguration we have not seen in 40 years. Take us through what is normally done and what we are going to see on Tuesday morning Singapore time.
I've been lucky enough to go to multiple inaugurations. The first one I went to was George H.W. Bush's in 1988. I was at the Capitol, for Clinton's inauguration in 96. I was too hungover to go to the one in 92. That's another story. This is amazing pomp and circumstance. I mean, the United States knows how to do these types of things, and it is really an important part of the ceremony. And for the first time since Ronald Reagan was inaugurated for the second term, so very different.
1985.
85. A second inaugural is very different than a first inaugural. This one is going to be indoors because it is going to be below freezing in Washington, D.C., and you're going from tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of people to witness this to just a few. I mean, like in the 100,
in the hundreds,
at the most, because you are now in the Capitol, in the Capitol itself.
So it's in the rotunda, isn't that where Jimmy Carter was lying in state?
Exactly.
Same location, right?
The same location. It's just not that big, and so it is going to be very different to be inside. The energy level is going to be different. I mean, Trump wanted to have an inaugural in some ways like we have never seen, because this is where Joe Biden was warning about that oligarchy and the tech industrial complex that was coming, that Trump had invited to have the tech oligarchy literally sitting with his cabinet, elevating Bezos and Zuckerberg, right, and to his
and Elon, of course,
of course, Elon, because Elon's got an office in the White House. That's even a different story. This is going to be very different. Now they're not. I don't even know if they can be in the room.
Right.
They certainly. It'll be very different. Who's going to be in there? All members of Congress can't even go. The 435 House members, 100 senators. It's too small for them. But this was going to send a totally different message with who he was going to have with him, where he was going to be, and now it is just going to be, he has to be completely disappointed in this.
I'm reading this cynically and I'm thinking, is it just the weather? Or is it him concerned about size, crowd size?
No,
the man is absolutely obsessed with size.
No. We're talking about, it's going to be like freezing rain, possibly. It is going to be miserable. You're going to have people outside for I mean,
Hours,
the security level for this inauguration was going to be very different. I mean, when I went in 1988, I had a very different world then. I mean, you just literally, you needed to get a ticket, and you could, I had a ticket from my member of Congress who I had worked for over the summer, and so I got a ticket to the inaugural, and you could just go up there. Very little security, as I remember, in 1988. Maybe I went through a mag, probably, but that was about it. I mean, this is going to be completely different, and you are going to be outside for hours to try and get anywhere near the Capitol, and people possibly would have died, and certainly would have, if they're older and they'd have been outside when they shouldn't have been. It's the right call for just health reasons.
Right.
Yeah.
All right. I was going to say, you wrote this week in a commentary that Trump re-enters the White House poised to become the most powerful non-wartime president in U.S. history, both domestically and internationally. How and why?
Well, the how and why is because, first, presidents have been getting more power and more power and more power since Roosevelt. So part of this is every president they now do more through executive orders. And so the presidency has been growing in power since World War II. I mean, before World War II, you didn't even know, an executive office of the president was a small number of people. Now it is massive. So part of it is the evolution. But more importantly, Trump is going to take this into a different level. He is going to intimidate, and he has already done so, his party in the Congress, so in the House and the Senate, and the Congress is supposed to be a check on his power, and he has completely steamrolled them. You see people getting confirmed who would have never been confirmed because they are not only not qualified, they have some dangerous ideas that a lot of Republicans in the Senate would have voted them down, but Trump and his acolytes have put on a huge pressure campaign, so he is going to have unlimited power in almost when it comes to that check in the Congress. He has completely intimidated the media. You see people like the Los Angeles Times and the Washington Post in the lead up to the election wouldn't even make an endorsement one way or another. Now he is filing lawsuits against media companies, and they are paying up so that they can stay on his good side. Right. So the media is not the check anymore. The business community knows that this is the most transactional type of president that we have seen, and you could look at just his position on TikTok to see how transactional he is. It's gone from being a national security threat in his first term to someone he loves in his second term because the TikTok users supported him in the election. And so he's just transactional. So people are throwing millions of dollars at him. And a lot of this money, we may not even know where it is. So the business community, the media, the Congress, the courts are all not a check on him anymore. And that's why, Thurgood Marshall Jr. and I wrote that he is going to be the most powerful president since Roosevelt. And we didn't write about it in this column, but I will also say, and Elon Musk will be the most powerful private citizen since Rasputin. And so it is a different world.
Wow. I hope he doesn't get a song by phoning in.
Not too incendiary there, Steve.
No,
Can we get a word in edgewise here at some point?
It's not incendiary. Go ahead. Defend your good friend Elon Musk.
Whoa. I got to jump in there.
I'm not defending.
I have podcast evidence of both of you saying he was wonderful when he sent his rocket up. And I was the one saying, no, this guy's a James Bond villain. And you can go back in the podcast. You defended Elon Musk on this show.
I defended Elon Musk's right to spend his money to go to Mars or wherever he was going.
And he's got a right to spend his money getting Trump elected and so on and so on.
No, because he violated the law in part of what he was doing to get Trump elected. So no. And certainly he should not have a government contractor, which is what he is, with Starlink and SpaceX. A government contractor should not have an office in the White House complex, and he does. That is,
he will.
He does. Yeah, he will come January 20th or 21st, whenever he moves into the what we used to call the old executive office
somebody
building.
who's taken hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars in government money for Tesla,
and who has made billions of dollars as a result of Donald Trump winning.
I get it now. So he can't spend his money where he likes. He's only got to spend it where you like.
No, just follow the law, Neil.
You see what Neil's done there, folks? folks? You see what he's done? Yeah. Okay. All right. All this talk's making me hungry.
Yes.
And so hungry, in fact, I'm going to go out for a slice of Gino's East Pizza. They are back in Singapore for a 4-month collaboration or of some length, I guess, starting a few days ago. And they are at 4 different places around town. From my hometown, Chicago, one of the best pizza pies that there are. There are many great deep dish pizzas, but Steve, you're not convinced this is the one you want to go to?
Well, no. Look, I'm not convinced of a couple of things. First of all, my hometown is Mr. Chicago.
Yep,
so
I know
you lived there longer than I did. I moved out when I was in junior high school. I know you graduated from high school from there. So Gino's East is good. It's not the best. Lou Malnati's is the best. All right, now Lou Malnati's is coming.
It's like asking a Singaporean which chicken rice
and
you
also,
like, right?
Most Singaporeans are going to know neither of these places, so you've got to give context.
But they can appreciate the fact that everyone's got their favorite, right?
Most Americans are not going to know Lou Malnati's versus Gino's East because Chicago pizza is very different than pizza anywhere else in the country or the world, for that matter. I hope that Gino's East is almost as good in Singapore as it is in Chicago. It's just so hard to translate the cheese and the tomatoes and how it all gets cooked and what the ovens that they have. And it's like, you can't get good pizza in Singapore for the most part. I'll give you one or two.
You can't.
You can't. You can't get good pizza here. You can't get good Mexican food here. When I go home, you can't get an Italian beef, but that's a whole other story. So when I go home to the U.S., I'm eating Mexican, I'm eating pizza, and I put on a bunch of kilos. I hope they're good. They're not going to be as good as Chicago.
I have to say, objectively, I have no dog in this fight. I went to Gino's East for the first time in Chicago. I had the deep dish. Well, in this part of the world, we call deep pan, but of course it's called deep dish in Chicago. I thought it was easily one of the top 3 pizzas I have ever had anywhere in the world. So if one of the top 3 pizzas in the world is 80% as good as it is in Chicago, it still makes it by far and away the best pizza in Singapore.
And it's like, have you ever had chicken rice in the U.S.?
Of course not.
Okay, would they have? I mean, they have it there. They have it in New York. It's not as good. Of course, it's just not as good. The chicken rice here is the best in the world. Chicago pizza is the best in Chicago. And then when I go home, and my mom's in California now, she will literally fly in. They will fly in the Malnati's, and you order it, and it's close. But even when you get it on mail, straight from Chicago to California, it's not as good, and it's not going to be as good here. I'll go. Sure. I'll go at least once.
So it's going to be at our Tampines Hub, four locations. The Tender Fresh Classic at our Tampines Hub, Tender Best at Mega at Woodlands, Tender Fresh Classic at Chung Chin Nam at Beauty World, and Tender Best at Jalan Kayu. Nothing in the CBD
which
or
is
central
near me.
part of
Jalan
town.
Kayu is near me.
Yeah, that one's close to you.
I got a query about this, right?
Yeah.
It is one of the best pizzas. Why only 4 months? That's the point I'm not getting here. If anyone knows, I'd love to know. Anyone in F&B.
They do these pop-ups, right?
I know, it's a pop-up. But it's an icon. You're bringing an iconic pizza to Singapore.
I'm guessing it's the cost of real estate, right? And
maybe the franchising part. I don't know. If anyone does know, let us know. But I'm going to be there. Jalan Kayu.
Well, you tell me the prices. The spinach margarita $28, cheesy legend $29, meaty legend $33.
Reasonable.
That's for a 9-inch. No, that's a 9-inch.
For a 9-inch. That's like 4 slices.
You'd be getting a 14-inch or larger for that in the U.S. Right?
Oh, at least. Yeah. We're talking about 4 slices. Maybe one. That's one person. You can't. I don't think you can have a family cannot go. If you got a family of 4, especially if your kids eat like ours do,
but
you're talking $120 for a pizza.
The deep dish is different.
The deep dish is different. You don't need a full piece, right? I mean, you don't need a traditionally large piece for most people.
Well, that's my problem.
Like a half a piece of deep dish is like still a meal for a lot of people.
This is where you're both right. You are right. You should only eat 1, and Stevie's right because I ate 4 and I couldn't walk home.
All right, kids, we got to run. Thanks, Steve. Talk to you soon.
Bye.
To listen to more great interviews, download our podcasts at audio.sg or download the audio app. That's AWEDIO, audio at the App Store and Google Play.